Hello, I'm John Ryan.
And I'm JD Orr, and wow, there's a lot of handball going on. U.S. Handball podcast.
Well, I guess that's probably great moments and understatements. So we've had a few messages back and forth, but wow, there's so much going on.
I,
Uh,
I apologize for my absence. I thought I'd had a little more free time than I've had, and we had Vegas, we had the EHF Champions League, we got the women and men in beach world championships in China, we got the junior women in Skopje and Macedonia, and
well,
yeah, so
for sure, we need to talk about both the beach handball and the junior women. But if you want to touch real quick on the Vegas
yeah,
tournament
yeah.
and how that went.
I think it was definitely an interesting time. If you have not been to Vegas, it's always entertaining. A lot of things to see, good and bad. But I think everybody had a pretty good time just being in Vegas in general. It was super hot, but I think overall we had plenty of setbacks and still games went on time. I think the schedule was maintained. Competition wise in D2 where I was at was pretty even. And besides the two teams that kind of we won't get into we'll get into the politics of what happened with the two teams that competed in the final, but it was a little bit of stack in the squads there. But on the D1 side, it was no surprise the two Norwegian teams finished out on top. I think Chicago was, a favorite to give them a run for their money, and they tied. They should have outright won. There was some drama in that game with a ill-advised timeout with 4 seconds left. That the Norwegian team would have won straight up, but didn't play out that way. But they faced each other in the final, so they were head and shoulders above everybody else, I'd say, for the most part, even with limited bench. And so, yeah, so I think everybody had a good time. Shout out to everybody that helped and uh, made sure things went off without too many hitches, but we had plenty of technical difficulties across the board. So,
Well, yeah, anytime you organize a tournament, you have problems. Anytime you
yeah,
organize a tournament
it's
of that scale,
yep,
uh,
it's the same old song and dance. So
yeah.
we unfortunately thought we had all the boxes checked beforehand, but I think we got them figured out and should be able to a little bit smoother sailing for next year. So I know these guys had a blast, the two Norwegian teams. So
You
that's an
Norwegians.
important
Hey,
part.
what's the deal with the with this dude with the shirt here?
That guy, he is a defensive menace. So I would not be surprised if he just got ripped because he was just absolutely a problem. He was a lockdown defender the whole weekend. So I totally missed that getting ripped. So
Yeah, yeah.
um,
I had a few things to say in my commentary, and I guess to try and separate out two things. It looked like a great tournament. Looks like people had fun.
yeah,
Looks like you know, you got two Norwegian teams. It's fun to play people you've never played before in the United States. That's
yep,
all awesome. No complaints from me there. It looks like it was a great tournament from that standpoint. Um, Especially, if you've never, you get two games against people you never played before.
yeah.
Um,
And I
I don't
won't
know
be
how much we want to get into politics of it, but you know, at some point we need to figure out when we have a national championship, it's
what
just
is
us.
yes, yeah, yeah. No, I think we changed the name of the tournament next year because I think the intent is to get more European teams to come over as well. So there might, at least for
Why
this
not?
Vegas tournament. So
Especially Las Vegas. It's if you're going to do it in Las Vegas, everybody wants to come to Vegas once
yep,
in their life. And
yep,
for those Norwegians there, I bet you, well, it's a pretty popular city. I'd say a third of them never ever visit Las Vegas again.
yeah,
Um, so they got that under their belt, and check that off their bucket list. Some people might love it so much they'll move there and they'll restart the Scorpions. Who
yeah.
knows?
Who knows? Who
Um,
knows?
so um, anyway, it looked like a pretty good tournament. I enjoyed checking it out, seeing what was happening. Um, but well, anyway,
Yeah. So we can get into that another time. So there's that.
sure.
We'll have time to dive into that a little more.
All right. Well, what's your next topic then?
I think we'll just go down the line of what's completed. So beach is wrapped up now for our men and women squads over in Pingtan. I probably pronounced that wrong. China. So
Yeah,
um,
let me throw up some video.
while
Uh,
John's getting that pulled up, both teams, had opportunities to qualify for the World Games. Um, had quite a difficult road, I would say, on the women's side. On the first half of the tournament, they had a tall order of games, and the men they they won some difficult games as well. So, but then that middle section of the tournament where they needed to win games, it was a little bit tougher, I think, for them to pull it off. I wasn't able to tune into all of them, but I caught bits and pieces where I could.
yeah, we'll talk about the men first. I decided to pull up uh, their shootout versus the eventual champions from Croatia. Croatia
Which
won,
to
right? I think the
yeah, to force a shootout against the team, that ends up winning
Cro-
the whole thing. That's a pretty good.
Croatia lost 3 sets. What's the terminology? I hear some people say sets. I hear some people say games.
I
When you play
I've
a match, you play 3 sets. You play 2 set, best two out of three.
basically, yeah. I've also heard both, but I always say sets.
Yeah.
But I think the actual term is game. Uh, but that
Game
or
one,
match, I
game
think
one, two.
maybe.
Yeah. Well,
But
maybe we'll clarify that at some point.
yeah,
But they lost 3 sets all during the tournament, and one of them was to the United States.
that's
Um,
wild.
yeah, it and a team we lost to make it to the quarterfinals. Argentina
Yep.
made it all the way to the semifinals.
Yeah. You
Um,
know. That's the crazy part
so
with beach is that, I've discussed this before. It's like it's 4v3, so if you have better, all you got to do is have the sub on the right side, on the correct side for you to have the success where you can have a quick substitution on for your goalie and have your, dominant hand shooter on that side. Like it's just a man up advantage. Like if they don't have the defenders to defend it, like you can kind of score as needed. So
and a shout out there to ABA, not so much there, but he's becoming an elite shootout goalkeeper. Um,
it's all
mixing
strategy,
it up,
Yeah. How
mixing
did
it up with a surprise stop there in the middle. Um, and I'm not saying he wasn't an elite player to begin with, but it seems to me just in the last year or two, he's added this to his
repertoire?
Swiss Army knife uh, beach handball capabilities. Um, but wow. So it's 4-4 here against Croatia. So tough miss
Tough
there.
one there for Mr. Brown.
Yeah. And the thing I was starting, I guess I'd have to do a full in-depth review of all their major tournaments and how they've done. But they have always been competitive. And maybe we would say, like, okay, they lost the first one by 8 points and they lost the second one by 2 points.
Mhm.
And so we're competitive. We could have won either of those sets, and now we're splitting sets against a good team and losing in the shootout. Yeah, that's an outstanding play, right? I mean,
Yeah, it's also just like he's pushing the limits with contact, like, and he understands exactly where it needs to be, and that's the thing with Beach is that he knows the guy can only do a 360. So if you time it right, you can be in the way, and there's nothing the guy like as long as you cut off his arm angles, there's nothing he can
Yeah,
do, and not
I
to mention
love
the
how
sand bounce.
it
Like,
it's you're playing a crapshoot there, but if you can get one or two stops, this
that's
strategy of periodically coming out, um, I love it.
yeah,
It's added another uh dimension to the game, I think. And I say that because, correct me if I'm wrong, it didn't seem to me like 3 or 4 years ago there was much of that going on. It was sitting back and hoping for the best.
have you ever
You know,
seen the Swedish, I think it's Sweden Spain youth beach championship shootout? Because I would play that caveat, and I think that was like 2019. Um, you want to watch that's the only clip you need to see for beach handball is the highlights from that game.
yeah,
The Swedish goalie makes two diving full, all out layout diving stops on the pass to force more shooters basically, and then he does that to win the game. I mean, it's an incredible clip, I would say. But yeah, mixing it up. I mean,
see, so if he was a little bit better back in the goal, he kind of had that guy hung out to dry there. He
yeah,
had to shoot from pretty far away. It wasn't a great angle. Um, so I'll look that up and I'll put a link to that match that you're talking about in the
yeah,
show notes. Um, but wow, this I was going to suggest like for music, cuts like a knife, because these games can go either way. I
yeah.
mean,
If you
almost.
get to a shootout, anybody can win the shootout.
Oh, it's um so frustrating.
But that's my point. If you just win one set, then you're already halfway there to potentially winning the whole game. And then it's
Right.
like, okay, now anybody can do anything.
Yeah. Gee, that's the world champ. We could have faced a team like that in the quarterfinals and put them down.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. So, um, wow. I, I guess my message here is our beach handball team is for real.
it's
If anybody had
definitely.
any doubts,
Go ahead, finish your
no,
thought.
I was just say if anybody had any doubts, this team is for real. They can beat anybody, and it's not only they can beat anybody, they are going out to every match with the thinking that they are going to win this game. And
Yeah,
it's just a matter of time before it becomes uh, a reality. They're gonna medal in one of these major tournaments. It's just by the laws of probability. That's what's gonna happen.
yeah, and I think the big thing is that it's been a core group of guys, for the last, I would say, probably 5 6 years. There's been 3 4 5 guys that have been a part of the program. The pool continues to grow. Henson's doing a good job of just continuing to get more and more
Those guys
athletes into
playing
the.
defense. Those guys playing defense. Solid defense. Really cutting down the angles. Um, Damn.
But yeah, it's just one of those things that I think, like, as we keep more people playing, we're gonna keep getting better each time. And like we said, with beach, all you got to do is have one good set, and you can beat any team. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
that's my stance is that it's crazy. I mean, the team that I played on when we went to Canary Islands, it was a real ragtag group. Four of us, three of us had really never played any real beach handball before, and we won a set against Poland, who's not they're
Yeah.
a pretty strong team, and
Yeah.
it just
Hey,
shows
hey
you
JD,
anything's possible.
can you see the page with the
Yep,
results
with
and
the
standings?
results. Yep.
Yeah. Well, shout out to the men's team. Overall competitive wise, so you end up playing 9 matches. The US men were 4-4-5 in those 9 matches. And he said, you know, 2 shootout losses. Damn.
I think I watched the end of the China game. I think they could have beat that Chinese team. I mean, you look at the scores for that one in particular, like very close. Argentina game, very close. Croatia game, obviously shootout. Um, Portugal, I think there was a little bit outmatched maybe, but and Germany is a good, very good squad, but it looks like that second set was pretty close. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Uh, Making great headway. Um, Bummer they didn't qualify for the World Games. That match seeming if I was a meaningless match, I got a message saying nope, not a meaningless match. Because if they had won against China, they would have qualified for next year's World Games, also in China. Um, let's talk a little bit about the women's beach handball. Um, they played nine matches as well. They won a couple of them in consolation play against Australia and Puerto Rico, and then in the placement matches next time around, they lost to both of those teams. So a little bit disappointing results. What's your take?
yeah, I think their group play, it was a tall order for them. I think there was some issues, interesting selection of like pots of ranked teams and things like that. Um, I I didn't get to watch any of the women's games. I'll admit. I apologize for that, but
Get your act
um,
together, JD.
yeah, yeah. I
Jeez.
I watched probably a grand total of like 7 to 8 minutes of the men's team. So I just while I was watering the plants or doing whatever else. But I think from the people I talked with a little bit, there was some interesting gameplay decisions on the women's side. They had a new coach. I think that is kind of new to the beach team. But you got some pretty talented players like Christine and Missy for sure that should be able to generate a good amount of offensive production. So I don't really know. They got a pretty good sized team. They got ladies that have been playing for a long time, so the
Yeah.
results should be there.
Well, they have a smaller talent pool that they're working with, and they have been playing for a while, but they need to bring in some new blood, if you will. I think, and they need to expand their talent pool, bring in some younger players probably, because I think that's partly when you play. Those matches are a lot shorter, but
The
you're
sand,
playing nine of them.
yeah,
That's a lot of handball, and I can suspect that when you come to that last day, it's like you're in quicksand,
yeah,
moving a little bit, and that's where I think some more players to bring into the talent pool. Um, maybe as a longer podcast sometime, maybe we'll invite Mishi on or somebody.
yeah,
Is how do we grow the talent pool? How do we really expand the sport? Because I think for the most part, it's a Southern Cal sport. And maybe it makes sense to have most of the people in Southern Cal and training together, working together. Um, and if we try and expand nationwide, it's awful tough to have a training camp
yeah.
fly
In
people in, and
Iowa,
they've done that. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. Um,
We've done that here in Columbus. Henson came out. Michi's come out to all of our stuff. Jacob Roberts, shout out Kentucky Stags. I mean, he's been doing 3, 4 beach events every year in Kentucky. So,
I
uh,
see the work being put in, and I'm just wondering if it's whether it can be if it can be done. Is it being successful, or is this a case where um, for the longest time, beach volleyball wasn't played anywhere else outside of California. Um, Water polo was almost
yeah,
exclusively a
California
California thing.
thing.
Indoor
Yep.
volleyball until maybe 20 years ago or so, it was just California mostly, not entirely, but a good portion of it. I don't know. That's a longer
Yeah.
discussion. I don't know what the right answer is, but let's move on to the.
I'll make one more point while we look at some
Oh,
of these
sure, go
scores
ahead.
real quick. Is like looking at that Denmark game. They lost both sets by essentially one goal opportunity. The Vietnam game, both sets were pretty close as well. And so that's where it's like they had games where, and then their last game against Puerto Rico. So they had three potential games that could have flipped, the other
Sure.
other direction. So while they only came away with two wins, it's not. That's a problem. Is I feel like it's not super reflective because, one
Well,
one kind of
they
thing.
they just need a couple more players. I mean, Christine Mansour is elite. Okay, you get the ball into her, it's gonna be 2 points,
Yeah,
and she makes a tremendous difference on that team. If you just add another scorer or two, um, they that changes the nature of that team um, pretty quickly. So, um, yeah, it wasn't all doom and gloom. I agree with you.
yeah.
They had some positive moments. All right, let's talk about
Staying with the other ladies,
the other
the
ladies.
indoor ladies,
Let's see here.
which they've had quite the journey here. I know Aaron and Hannah from our Ohio State team. They went to France and Germany, and now they're in Macedonia. So they had quite a bit of a lead up to this tournament with a good portion of the team. So
Yeah, there's
a lot of
certainly
good
no
experience.
complaints. Certainly no complaints with the effort and the sacrifices
Yes.
these young ladies are making. Um, they're huge. Um, I sometimes I got my doubts about the overall structure of the program, the future of the program, but zero complaints with the effort being put forward. So much so that I even contributed to their GoFundMe page,
There
and
we
I
go.
normally I don't do that, but I just said okay, just a little bit of money, but it's something just to say I appreciate, I really appreciate the
Yeah.
effort involved. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm watching these matches. It gives me something to follow. Um, hey,
Maybe
again,
put your
no
betting
gripes
winnings
with the
back
effort.
into the team.
Uh,
So,
hey, well, yeah, against the spread
yeah, yeah.
again today, 4-0
Max
against the spread.
Max had
Uh,
texted me. It's like, yeah, the line 16 and a half. And then I texted him that they, lost by 17. And he's like, I took the alternate spread at 17 and a half. And I was like, oh no.
oh,
Oh, so
yeah.
that was pretty funny.
Um, it's something that I learned a long time ago. I bet against Air Force against Northwestern, and D Dallas, best quarterback Air Force ever had a career passing day, broke career passing records, which, you know, I spent the whole game miserable because I,
Just
I was like,
watching, yep, just torn.
I, I was like, I was like going, well, Northwestern's not going to win, but they're going to cover the spread, and I'm like, no, I
That's just,
never ever psychologically, I never ever bet against my team, no matter how much I think they might be in trouble.
yeah, yeah.
Um, that's just a personal psychological thing.
That's a good
Um,
for your own mental state, I think.
yeah. Um, but anyway, so they've performed better than what the bet makers, the odds makers have said, but they still have come up short in all four matches. Um, and they're down in the President's Cup today. Uh, um, I guess you hate to talk about moral victories, but the fact that they have at times played these teams closer than people expected, closer to what I expected, um, is a positive thing that they can take forward.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just again, I got to watch just a couple minutes because a lot of these games have been at early hours of the morning kind of thing. Um, but the one game I tuned in, I was like, this seems like solid play. And looking at those scores, I just it's one of those question marks. Like we played, looks like, in my opinion, better against Iceland than Angola, and I feel like Iceland should be a much tougher opponent. But um, I'm just
Well,
saying that in the
this is
sense
where
that
you
we
get
scored
this is where
more.
you get a little bit to the nuances of European handball.
Yeah,
The Iceland women have never been very good. Um, same with the North Macedonian women.
yeah,
For whatever reason, I mean, a lot of times we think that culturally that Europe is just like us.
it's good to
Some of
say.
those countries have been slower to get on board with women's sports,
Yeah,
and it's a little bit reflective sometimes in how well um, they've performed,
yeah.
if you will.
But here we
Um,
are in this one, 10 minutes in, and it's one goal game. Obviously, pretty low scoring still, but
well,
you
and
know,
get this, JD. So Emma Rita, Emma Reedy
yep.
did not suit up. I messaged her father,
Another
Jason.
fast break save. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
boy, she has been a huge difference. Um, and she's a quality goalkeeper, Lainey Gronwald,
Grunwald. Yeah,
and and against relatively inexperienced teams like Guinea, she just eats up eats up bad shots.
good.
And she's a good goalkeeper, and against inexperienced shooters like you're supposed to, uh, she shuts them down. She had like a 48% save rate in
Oh,
that
dang.
match.
Okay.
Okay, it was she she stopped a lot of stuff, and you could tell the Guinea team wasn't very experienced. A lot of throwing the ball around up top.
There was a
I think
nice shot.
I think, yep. But going back there, so Emma Reedy unfortunately broke her ankle
Oh,
yesterday in training,
oh, jeez. Oh, at
and
practice. Oh, jeez.
so she had surgery already, and she's got a 4 month recovery.
Wow.
Uh,
Okay.
so and on top of that, Isabella de Cruz had some sort of thing on her right hand, so
Oh,
she
boy.
did not play in
Yeah.
this match. So they had two starting backcourt players that didn't play, and they just it was next woman up.
Yep.
They really, if there was a situation where they would have some problems, and things might get out of hand, it might have been this match. But wow, they, like I said, this was close throughout. It didn't really get Guinea didn't pull away until the end. Um, but
Well, that's good to hear and they have Uzbekistan uh tomorrow, or has that already happened?
they play Uzbekistan tomorrow
Okay.
at 7 a.m. Eastern time. Is
Okay.
that is that too early for you, JD? Or are you going to
Between
get up?
getting the kids and dogs and everything else ready to go to start the day, I could probably try to have it on in my pocket or something. Uh,
Um,
so
so one shout out here. The more I've seen her play, the more I have been impressed with Daisy
Chia, yeah,
Lucia. Um, uh, and I don't think she has played. I mean, Mexico has changed a lot since when I was a younger guy. I think they have more established leagues,
yeah,
but uh, she might be the best athlete on that team.
and she's
Um,
correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean I feel like she first joined the team when she was like 15, and that was like 3 or 4 years ago. So she's
she played in Chicago, and I could see that there was um, um, some some talent there. There she is with the ball. You can tell she's not fluid with her movements, but she has good quickness. Um, so I think she has a future. Viva Kreis, Kreis, however She's struggled a bit shooting from the wing, um, but this is probably the most expensive playing time that she's ever had. Um, this team has a lot of shortcomings, but man, they are working hard. They're only 3.5 goal underdogs to Uzbekistan tomorrow. So
I feel like
hey,
that's a game they could win. You know,
it's certainly within the in the realm of possibility. There's Ohio State there.
there's Hannah. Yep,
All right. Um,
bruising. That's what we need. Need people to set the tone. So finally getting
yeah,
2 minutes. There's ball don't lie. So it's good.
yeah. So yeah, stopped another penalty shot. Outstanding
I mean,
performance
she's
from
had three
her.
saves in the 4 or 5 minutes we've been
Yeah,
watching. So
yeah.
it's
Yeah,
pretty.
well, let's see if I can pull up the stats from the match. Let's see here.
But yeah, I think
Here you
you
go.
know,
Here's the line for tomorrow.
yeah, what do we got? 55.5. That's an
That ain't gonna
interesting
happen.
one. I feel like I would take under on that. So
Oh, it's that's yeah. I I'm thinking about that right now.
so
That
what's
that
interesting
seems
to
way high.
what's interesting to
Uh,
me is that, I have DraftKings, we have, sports gambling in Ohio. I do not have handball as an option to bet on in Ohio in DraftKings, but you in Colorado do. And I know Max, when he lived in Maryland, he did. So I'm
yeah.
not sure what the difference from state to state is on that
So
front.
each state, you have to make there has to be an application by someone to have a particular sport as a
Offered.
betting option. They actually has to get approved by the state sports betting commission, whatever.
Sounds like I need
And
to
then
write a letter.
and then the sports books have to also decide that they
Yeah.
want to show it. I think the only reason why they have it is because they already have these lines in Europe. Europe was way ahead on sports betting. They had it online way back to 2000, 2011, 2012
Okay.
when Sasson played Montpellier. They had sports betting apps on their phones. That's a
Oh
whole
God.
other
Yeah, whole
can of
nother.
can of
Yeah.
worms for Mr. Karabati. So they just use the same sport lines that they have in the United States, and any adjustments are not based on what Max is betting.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
based on the action. And the bizarre thing is if you go into these comments, not so much here, but there was Russian guys chatting with each other about
On the what the
yeah. Well, here,
betting
here
line
it
or
says
yeah.
it says
Please tell me
uh
chances to score over 30.5.
yeah, that guy's not that guy looks like maybe he's from Asia or something.
Yeah.
But there was I took it and I put it into Google Translate, and it was a couple Russians complaining about
The lack of or
like
whatever.
why are we betting on these children? You know. Um, but we got 5 minutes left. Was there any other topics that you wanted to?
Yeah, not for today. There's we saw
I can,
some movement on the US handball board.
oh yeah, we can talk about
So
that. We can talk about sports betting another day.
yeah.
All right, so here we go. Michael Wall and Tracy Forge resigned from board of directors. You can see this fine.
Yep.
Um, you know, I am not an investigative reporter. I
Just
don't even
stating
play one on
facts.
TV.
Yep.
I don't want to dig into what's going on. Well, I mean, I sort of do. I have a little bit of curiosity. I've asked people, nobody's talking to me. They're probably afraid of, I don't know if they're
What a
afraid, or they just don't want John Ryan
yeah.
to comment on whatever their position is. Um, so I have no idea really what's going on. I've reached out to Patrick. He hasn't responded. I thought about contacting Michael Wall, but I'm like, oh, if your resignation is not going to
Yeah.
say anything, do you really care? For those who don't know, Michael Wall was the president of the board of directors.
For the
Um,
last almost 5 years.
yeah,
Or it might be 5 years. I think he started in 2019. about
So
April. So, yeah, yeah, he and Tracy are. I was on the board with the two of them. Uh, you know, solid sports backgrounds, both independent directors. And Michael, attorney, and Tracy, she works for a like sports marketing kind of company. Um, but I think I'm not sure what really led exactly to them stepping down, but it definitely makes things a little interesting on the board. And now, Patrick's been on the board for a long time, has taken over for now. So we'll see how things shake up.
so I actually do have a little bit of a message, and it's a little bit of a history lesson.
Okay.
And I will put a link to this article titled "What's the Rush?" written 2013.
Oh boy.
Auburn residency programs. A big decision can and should wait for a board of directors. So here's my message to board of directors who might be listening. We had a
Hey,
situation in 2013 where essentially two active board members, two only. You currently there's six. Um, I guess Sandra De La Rapide
she
left.
stepped down a little bit
Yeah.
ago.
So, but apparently they've identified somebody to come on. I
Lawrence
know there's a
Taylor.
process.
Yep.
Lawrence Taylor. I
Not the
remember I
not
was
the
joking about.
linebacker. So
Yeah, I was going, wow, coming coming
yeah, I
out of
was
the
like, wow,
grave.
okay. I didn't hear this coming.
um, but so I wrote this saying, well, what are we doing? They signed the Auburn contract with only two board of directors on hand.
Oh
Yeah.
boy.
So I was, three reasons. And I got 2 minutes here. I said
Yep.
like, hey, should be looking at other options. Um, there's no rush. Got some time to figure this out. And then the federation bylaws, identifies the board as reviewing and approving significant corporate actions. Okay.
Hmm.
So I guess my message here is no significant corporate actions while you're
So
trying to
we,
get things
yeah.
squared away. Do the diligence to find some new board members, get your feet back on the ground, write a new strategic plan. Um,
Yeah.
you know, act do make the decisions that a board is supposed to make. Don't just sit back and just
I think that's
hope
been
everything
part
works.
of the problem is that, when I was on the board, I thought we'd be more of an acting board, active in making a lot of things happen. And in reality, it was just sit back, make sure that things don't self implode. And I think we need more change rather
Nice
than
if that was our situation,
right.
but unfortunately, it isn't. Well, anyway, for JD Orr, I'm John Ryan. Thanks for listening.